Yay. Okay, so here we are for another MAAT session. I'm on solo this evening. Vida is not able to be here, so it will just be me, Margaret Major. We're going to have a discussion about boundaries. Boundaries are something that is essential to our health and our well-being, our mental health, our physical health, psychological health. So we're going to talk some about boundaries. First, I'm going to do our diversity welcome, as I always do. And today is September 1st, 2021. So first, I would like to welcome all women, men, transgender, and other identified individuals here today. I welcome everyone here who is a mother, father, sister, brother, auntie, uncle, cousin, son, daughter, grandmother, and grandfather. Welcome. I welcome people of all races, tribes, and descent. I welcome your bodies, your minds, and your energy. I welcome survivors and those who support them. I welcome all people single, married, partnered, dating, celibate, or involved in whatever sort of relationship is right for you. I welcome gay, lesbian, bisexual, heterosexual, queer, asexual, two-spirited, and others for whom none of the current labels fit. I welcome your emotions, your joy, your bliss, your grief, your rage, your hope, frustration, sadness, contentment, and disappointment. I welcome everyone's special way of understanding and knowing the world. Everyone's wisdom, whether it is education that has been learned in schools, colleges, universities, and or the deep and profound school of life. I welcome those living with chronic medical conditions and disabilities, visible and invisible. I welcome your families, genetic and otherwise, our networks of family and friends who make our lives happier, gentler, and easier to be in. I welcome mystics, seekers, and believers of all kinds. I welcome people who identify as activists, community leaders, artists, musicians, group members, and those who don't. And finally, I'd like to welcome the ancestors who lived in this land where we are now. Welcome the spirits of Mi'kmaq, the natives who lived in this area before the Europeans came. I'd like to acknowledge them and invite their spirits to this space. Everyone, welcome and thank you. Okay, so thank you for joining us. I see we've got a couple of people watching. Wonderful. If you have any comments, anything you would like to throw out there, please use the chat button at the bottom of your video screen, and you can address it as it comes. So I would like to extend thanks and gratitude to the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. They provided us with financial support and funding to be able to do this program, and we're extremely grateful to them for their much needed support. So going to just start right in with boundaries. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are limits that we set. They are to protect us and keep us safe. That's the basics of what boundaries are for. It's to know our own limits. It's to know other people's limits. Like the boundaries, the property boundaries around a piece of land, that kind of identifies where you cross and where you don't. and we all have a right to set boundaries for ourselves. We have boundaries in many different areas of our life. I have a photo. I'm just going to screen share here. So we have emotional boundaries, and I'll talk a little bit more about these 5 areas of our life where we all have boundaries, and if we don't have boundaries, we need to consider putting boundaries in place, just because we need to honor ourselves and take care of ourselves, and that setting boundaries is one way that we're able to do that. So emotional boundaries are around like inappropriate topics, emotional dumping, which could kind of be tied to time energy boundaries as well. Time energy boundaries has got to do with how the people around you treat your time and how you treat your time. If you have somebody who, let's say, calls you on a regular basis and they just, do a dumping, as it's called, an emotional dumping, and that's never reciprocated for you, and your time is used up, and you find that when you hang up the phone, you feel drained, or could even be a little bit of irritability or anger there. That could be a sign that you need a boundary around your time. So if somebody calls and they need to do some dumping, maybe you can set a 5 or 10 minute limit on it rather than an hour. And everybody has different boundaries. They're all individual to suit you. Boundaries are something that we may need to set some certain boundaries when we're going through a really difficult time in our life, because we just don't have the energy to be able to be there for others in the way that we might feel we need to be or we would like to. Okay, so back to boundaries, that the 5 areas in our life. Mental boundaries, that's your freedom to have your own thoughts, beliefs, values, and opinions. Often in abusive situations or abusive relationships, a person is not necessarily allowed, and I'm using my quote fingers, to have their own thoughts or beliefs or values. They are usually, there's a control dynamic that's going on in abusive situations, and one partner does not necessarily have that freedom to have their own thoughts. They are told what to think, what to value, and often what to believe. Our physical boundaries are, that's got to do with our physical self, our body, how close somebody stands to us. Touch could be a hand on the shoulder, public displays of affection, unwanted comments regarding appearance or sexuality. So physical touch, our skin is our physical boundary. That's what helps keep us safe on the inside. And it is necessary to have consent whenever you touch somebody in a physical sense, especially in a sexual way. Consent is mandatory. Consent is a topic that I could get greatly sidetracked on. I think that there's been more discussion about consent in our world and our culture in the last few years, but I still think that there needs to be more consistent education around what consent is and what consent is not. I still hear from clients sometimes that they believe that when a person is silent, that means consent, and that's not consent. Consent is never silent. even like in regards to physical boundaries, we're required to have consent in first aid situations as well. If the person is not unconscious, we need to ask them if we can put our hands on them to help them. Material boundaries. Boundaries around your possessions, how and when they can be used, and how they are to be treated. You lend your car to somebody and they return it, and it's full of garbage, or it's dirty, or has no gas in it. Or you lend clothing to somebody or a personal belonging, and it's not respected in the way that you might respect somebody else's stuff. These are all tied to boundaries. Okay, I just want to read this sheet. I have a lot of sheets here that I'm probably going to read from. Let me just, okay. So boundaries include physical space, personal boundaries, emotional boundaries, and psychological space. A boundary is a flow of information, feelings, and physical contact between two or more people. You need to have personal boundaries. They give you a sense of safety, a means of regulating your interactions with others. They tell you who you are, what your rights and your responsibilities are as a person. Boundaries tell you you are a unique individual entitled to needs and to having those needs met. Boundaries tell you you are worthy. That's so important. A lot of clients that I've worked with don't know that they're worthy of deserving safety and protection. A lot of people that I work with have experienced sexualized violence and trauma, and their body, their mind has been violated. Their boundaries have been violated, and they don't know that they have a right and that they are able to set a boundary because it's been violated. And in cases of repetitive sexual abuse, a person doesn't have a sense of boundary at all. And that's one of the most important things that I work on with clients is the boundary work. It's not necessarily something that is in the curriculum at schools talking about boundaries. There may be a specific lecture or something on it, but it's not necessarily embedded in the education system, and boundaries are so important. And you honor yourself by setting boundaries, and you honor others by respecting their boundaries as well. I need to close my window. I'm in a different environment today. I am at home, and my neighbor is mowing the lawn. There. Okay. So some examples of unhealthy boundaries. We'll do unhealthy first, and then we'll do some examples of healthy boundaries. These are all signs of unhealthy boundaries. Accepting food, gifts, touch, or sex that you don't want. That's a boundary violation on yourself. Acting on first sexual impulse is an unhealthy boundary. Allowing someone to take as much as they can from you. Being overwhelmed or preoccupied by a person. Overwhelmed or preoccupied is they seem to take up all of your brain space. Being sexual for a partner and not yourself. Believing that others can anticipate your needs. That's a boundary issue. Expecting others to fill your needs automatically. It's not possible. Falling apart so someone will take care of you. Falling in love with a new acquaintance. Falling in love with anyone who reaches out to you. Food abuse. Giving as much as you can for the sake of giving. Going against your own personal values or rights to please others. Letting others define who you are. Letting others describe your reality. Letting others direct your life. Not noticing when someone else displays inappropriate boundaries. Not noticing or caring when somebody invades your boundaries. Self-abuse. Self-harm. Sexual or physical abuse. Taking as much as you can for the sake of taking. And again, these are all examples of unhealthy boundaries. Telling all, that's a big one. I didn't learn about boundaries until probably my mid-20s. I was sitting in a therapist's office, and she brought up the topic of boundaries. And I thought I had great boundaries. I thought I can talk about anything with anybody. That's a great thing. And now I've learned a lot since those days, because it's not safe to talk about anything with everybody. Some people will not honor your information in the way that it deserves to be. Some people will not respect it. And some people aren't safe to share some information about yourself with. It will be misused. So yeah, I didn't even learn about boundaries until my mid-20s. And boundaries are something that I continue to work on personally and professionally. Boundaries are something that we all need to work on through our entire life. As we change, our boundaries may change. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're, let's say you've experienced an incredible loss in your life, a loved one who's passed away, you may need certain boundaries around you during that time of grieving, just to protect you and keep you safe, because you're more vulnerable during that time. Now, some people with unhealthy boundaries, often they're too loose or they're too rigid. Loose boundaries was like the example I shared about myself, talking about anything with anybody. That's not okay. That's a pretty loose boundary. Rigid boundaries are, it has to be this way. This is the only way it can be. Your way is the wrong way. My way is the right way. And that's the only, and some people are very rigid in their perception of things. Things are very black or white. And those boundaries are very unhealthy, because the world that we live in is not black or white. And having with rigid beliefs, there's usually a message of always or never in there, for example. Like, always be a lady. Well, we could spend a whole show talking about that comment. it's impossible to always do something and to never do something. And when we have that as part of our thinking, there's a lot of rigidity in a lot of very black or white. And it's very unhealthy. It's very, there's no flexibility. I just have another couple of examples here of the boundary unhealthy. So an unhealthy boundary is thinking you are responsible for someone else's happiness, or thinking that someone else is responsible for your happiness. We are responsible for our own happiness, that our own healing. It's unhealthy to have an expectation or a belief that this person can make me happy. It's just, there's going to be a lot of hurt and disappointment. Thinking that you are responsible for someone else's behavior, like this may happen. A couple is out at a social function, and one person, you know, says a very sexist joke or a racist joke, and the other partner apologizes for them. Oh, she's sorry, she didn't mean it. Or oh, he didn't mean it. We're not responsible for the behaviors of someone else, and that's a tough one that I've worked on with a lot of clients as well. Often in cases of sexual assault, the person blames themselves. They think that somehow they caused that behavior. They attracted it. They caused it to happen. It was their fault. And a person never causes a behavior from someone else. If I get in someone's face and I'm calling them every nasty name I can think of, you know, spitting in their face and everything, and they punch me in the face, that is, I didn't cause, no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. They didn't cause me to do that. I lost control and I chose that behavior. I could say, well, it's your fault that I did it, but really it's my fault that I did it. I could have walked away. I didn't have to choose that behavior. And that behavior was mine, not the person or behavior. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm very confused. All right, I need to reset myself here. All right, let's look at healthy boundaries. We'll get off with the unhealthy ones for a second. So healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries are tied to knowing that you have rights. As human beings, we all have rights. It's important that we know what our rights are. A lot of people in this world don't know they have basic human rights. I'll read some rights here in a second, but some examples of healthy boundaries would be taking responsibility for all that is you and not taking responsible for what is not you. Healthy boundaries is saying no when something is not right for you. Saying no, that's a difficult one for a lot of people, at least a lot of people that I've worked with. People feel a lot of pressure that when they're asked to do something that they must say yes, and they must oblige and they must do it. And a lot of people will feel guilty saying no, but you actually have a right to say no to anything and not feel guilty. You have a right to that. No, I think I've mentioned on previous shows, no is a complete sentence. You don't need to offer a good enough excuse as to why you're saying no. Just no is a complete sentence. Healthy boundaries is taking full ownership and responsibility in defining yourself, not allowing others to define you for you. You doing that work, you deserve that work and that attention, that discovery of who you are. And some of it might be uncomfortable and you might not like some of the stuff that you find, but we always have opportunities for change and for growth. It's healthy to honor your personal values and beliefs, even though others may not like it. And that can be tough to do. If you have like your family network or your friends network, and maybe you hold a different belief than they do towards something. It might be challenging for you to honor that boundary in some situations. But it's healthy to honor your values, even though it's going to be challenging at times to stick to your boundaries. Respecting others' personal space and not touching them without their permission. That's the whole consent thing. That's healthy. Respecting the personal belongings and living space of others. Somebody's cell phone's laying there, you don't pick it up and go through it. Same as somebody's wallet or purse is there. Negotiating when, where, and how. This is in regards to sexual activity. How to engage in sexual activity. It is touching another person sexually only with their expressed permission. Expressed is a key word in that. Respecting others with your words and tone. And it's a healthy boundary to inform others when they've crossed a boundary of yours. That's a healthy practice. And that's one way that you honor your own boundaries, is communicating what your boundaries are to others. It's letting someone know when they have pushed up against or crossed over one of your boundaries. We can't just expect people to know what our boundaries are. And it's your own work to discover what your boundaries are. It's you doing that introspection. It's exploring those parts of yourself. What is important to me? What kind of things make me feel uncomfortable? Where do I need some boundaries in my life? Who do I need to set boundaries with? It's your journey and your trip. And don't let other people set your boundaries for you. That's part of your empowerment and your power, is being able to determine what your boundaries are. And when you do start setting boundaries in your life with people, people are used to treating you in a certain way. They're used to how you talk, favors you do. Well, if I ask 3 times, she'll keep saying no, but if I ask 5, she'll give in and finally say yes. People know you. And then when you try to start making changes in your life, some people aren't going to appreciate that. Some people are going to push very hard against your boundaries, and they're going to test you. It's going to be very challenging at first. You can do it though. Honor yourself. You need to know that you're important enough to honor yourself and that boundary that you're trying to set or have respected. But people will get it, and they will test. It's it's helpful to know that going in, because I think some people have an impression that, oh, once I start setting boundaries in my life, everyone will respect and honor them in the way that I would like them to, and everything will be great. And it's not. No. I've pissed a lot of partners off, actually, that partners of clients, because we do boundary work and they start setting boundaries. I remember years ago I had a female client. She was in her late 40s, and we were having conversations about boundaries. And in her home with her husband, she wasn't allowed to close the bathroom door whenever she used the bathroom, had a bath or a shower. And that really bothered her. It made her uncomfortable. She wanted that privacy when she went into the washroom. And that was a boundary she really wanted to set for herself, was to be able to close the bathroom door. And he got really upset when she started closing the door. And he would open it and she would close it again. And eventually he left the door alone. But some people are going to push back. And that can actually be kind of a sign that you're doing, that you're changing and probably growing. Yeah. And okay, I think I've read everything off of that one that I want. So to the rights for a second, I just want to read a few rights that we all have. Some of us may not know that we have these rights. So these are just something for you to think a little bit about if you're thinking about putting some boundaries in your life. You have the right to have and express your own feelings, values, and beliefs in harmless ways. In harmless ways. You have the right to have personal boundaries, the right to decide what you will or won't tolerate from others, and to protect yourself. Ultimately, that's what boundaries are for. They're to protect you. You have the right to consider your own needs and to ask for what you want. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to give you what you want or you ask for, but you have every right to ask. You have the right to set your own priorities and make your own decisions. Again, some people don't know that they have that right or that they even have that power. You have the right to be imperfect and to have shortcomings without feeling guilty. Our society puts a lot of pressure on a lot of people, young people, adults, children, this idea of perfection. And we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And you have the right to feel imperfect and not feel guilty about that. You're not doing something wrong by not being perfect. You have the right to make mistakes and to take responsibility for them. You have the right to set your own pace and to be at the exact place that you are in life, regardless of what others think. Well, you should be here by now. You should be in university. You should be retired. You should be, yeah, that's, no, you decide. You have the right to be listened to and taken seriously. If you have people in your world that you don't feel listen to you or take you seriously or respect and honor you, you might want to be considered those relationships. You deserve to be honored and respected. You have the right to decide what or how much you want to share about yourself with others. One thing that I say to clients, usually during the first session with a client, is if I ever ask you a question and you don't want to answer, please don't. And you can share as much or as little as you want with me. I don't want people thinking that just because I'm the therapist sitting there and I pose a question to them, that they have to answer. Their power, their individual power, is they decide whether they answer that question to me or not. They don't have to. And a lot of people think that just because they're asked a question, they're supposed to answer. And I remember doing a healthy relationships group with 14 and 15-year-old girls. And there was, I think, 7 or 8 of them in this group. And I asked the question, if somebody asks you what color your underwear is, do you tell them? Well, yeah, you tell them. And then we had a discussion about about boundaries and about how, that's not information, that's not appropriate for someone to even ask. But they felt that, well, you were asked, so you're supposed to answer. And I hope that we had a conversation that hopefully changed their thinking. You have the right to be treated with respect and dignity. Yes, we all do. I know some people would argue with that statement that I just said. But we're all human. All human beings. And I even include our ecosystems, our animals, everything on the planet. All a big functioning unit. You have the right to be free from discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment. You have the right to stand up for your rights. And you have the right to love and respect yourself, most importantly. And that can be a process of learning for a lot of people. A lot of people that I've worked with, they need to learn how to like themselves, like who they are, not feel like they need to be somebody different, or that they're broken, or they're not normal. What's that? A right that wasn't on that list that I'd like to include came from the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook, I believe the 4th edition. He has a list of personal Bill of Rights in that book, which is an amazing book, and I highly, highly recommend it to anybody who's dealing with anxiety in their life. It is a workbook, and there are exercises to doing it, but it's incredibly, incredibly helpful. One of the rights that he lists in there is you have the right to be healthier than those around you. I think there's some people that need to hear that. You have the right to be healthier than those around There are some people that are in environments that are not healthy, that are very toxic. You may be having to live in close quarters with people who just aren't healthy for you. And boundaries, being able to know who you are, what's important to you, and those rights, knowing that you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. And there's so much information on the internet about boundaries and how to set them. The bottom line is boundaries are to protect you and keep you safe. We can feel when somebody pushes up against or crosses our boundary. That's usually a flag. It could be a yellow flag, sorry, yellow flag or a red flag, indicating that that person, that relationship, that situation might not be safe or respectful for you. Because when somebody pushes up against your boundaries or doesn't respect them, they're not safe for you. You're worth the time and the effort to do that inner work, to discover what areas you need to have boundaries in. Now, let me just go through my sheets here one more time. So knowing yourself, educating others about your boundaries. A boundary that I have, which I've mentioned earlier in an earlier episode, is I can't hear stories from clients or anybody about animal abuse. That is an emotional boundary that I have, and I've had to communicate to clients before that I'm not able to hear stories about animal abuse. And if they need to talk to somebody about that I can connect them with someone who is able to listen and to hear that. But I can't just expect people to know that I have that boundary. That's my responsibility to communicate that to people. And there has been times where I can recall an incident where this person knew that it was a boundary of mine, and they chose to cross it intentionally because they knew that it would be hurtful. And what that told me is this person is not safe. Not safe enough. They don't respect me in the way that I would like to be respected. Reinforce your boundaries. When you do start setting boundaries, reinforce them. It will be challenging at first with some people. Some people will get it right away, and some people might feel a sense of relief that, oh, okay, I know where our limits are with that. That's great. That can be helpful for some relationships. But be assertive, not aggressive. Passive doesn't work. You need to be assertive. You need to be able to speak clearly, communicate clearly. Setting boundaries is not doing something wrong. You don't need to hold your head down or feel guilty or ashamed. It's a healthy practice for your mental health to set boundaries. And what you'll also do is, in setting your own boundaries, those around you will notice, and you'll also teach some people in an indirect way, like you'll model that behavior for other people, and they may learn how to set their own boundaries through you in kind of a non-direct way. Now, I think I may have. Okay, yeah. This is another list of these are specific emotional boundaries, violations or unhealthy boundaries, and I just want to share some of these because sometimes people don't think that when we're hungry and we don't eat, that that's a boundary issue. Some people don't think that when you're tired and you don't rest, that that's a boundary. Those are all emotional boundaries. Well, and rest is a physical boundary issue as well. So I just want to read a few of the statements off of here. So these are ways that you can deny your true self and weaken your emotional boundaries. Pretending to agree when you disagree. Going along with an activity you really don't want to and never stating your preference. Pushing yourself beyond your limits. Working too hard, working too long, doing too much for others, ignoring your needs, insufficient sleep, too little or too much time alone, too much or too little exercise, insufficient contact with people who truly care about you, using chemicals to avoid yourself, nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, sugar, drugs. Those are just a few examples of how boundaries may look different. They're not just, hey, don't touch me or back off, don't come near me. They're also the limits you have with yourself as well. It's the relationship with yourself. And it's about respecting and honoring your own boundaries. Yeah. So lastly, before I do our loving kindness meditation, I just want to say a couple of things about healthy boundaries. So people with healthy boundaries are secure about themselves. They don't let others intrude. They have a clear sense of their own views, values, and priorities. They know themselves. They are confident. They can protect themselves without shutting off from others. But some people just put the wall up and no one's getting in there ever again. And that's not healthy. They can't, that's too rigid. There are some people who will respect and honor you in the way that you do. And it's not healthy to shut them. So again, people with healthy boundaries know how to stand up for themselves at appropriate times. They're able to enter into relationships without losing themselves. And they're able to identify safe and appropriate people. And I could probably do a few more shows on just picking different. We could talk about values in relation to boundaries. We could take each of the main areas in our lives where we need boundaries, and we could just spend a whole session just talking about that. But this was just meant to be kind of an overview about boundaries. I don't mean for this to be like a boundary course where now it's just boundaries are ongoing. Need to be flexible, not rigid, and just be be curious about what you might discover about yourself and what boundaries you might need to set, or what boundaries you might need to tweak. You might have a great set of boundaries right now, and maybe they just need to be reevaluated. So that concludes our discussion on boundaries for now. I'm sure we'll talk more about boundaries at some point during one more episode, since we have quite a few more to go. And I just need to find my loving kindness script. Okay, so thank you so much again for coming and spending this time with us. Just appreciate you hanging out and being here. So for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to do a loving kindness meditation. All you need to do is just simply close your eyes if you're comfortable closing your eyes. And if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, just find something to kind of fix your stare on. Just allow yourself to be in this moment. Hearing the sounds in the room around you. Putting all of your stresses and your worries, put them up on the shelf. And you can grab them back down when you're finished with this meditation if you choose to. Just allow your breathing just to start to slow down. Begin to feel any tension you might be holding. Begin to feel that tension start to drain away from you. Feel it drain away from around your eyes, your face, through your neck, your shoulders, down your arms. Feel any tension drain like a liquid down through your body and out through your toes. Now begin to feel your body fill up with love. Imagine a loving white light entering your feet, traveling up through your body, up to your stomach, to your chest, to your arms. Feel it almost bursting through your heart, your fingers, and through the crown of your head. When you feel embraced in that love, silently repeat the following words to yourself. May I be free from all harm. May I be safe and protected. May I be free from all suffering. May I be happy. May I be free from all disease and physical pain. May I be healthy and strong. And may I be able to live in this world happily, peacefully, joyfully, and with you. Now turn your thoughts to this vast world with all its living creatures. Continue to feel that love in your body as you silently say, may all beings be free from all harm. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings be free from all suffering. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from all disease and physical pain. May all beings be healthy and strong. And may all beings be able to live in this world happily, peacefully, joyfully, and with me. Send your love as far around the world as possible. Just imagine that energy traveling through the earth. Continue to feel that love centered around your heart. Feel yourself in this moment, the now. Feel the weight of your feet on the floor. And carry this feeling with you for the rest of your day. And when you are ready, you may slowly open your eyes. Yeah. Ah, there. All right. Now we're all pieced out. I think somebody was talking. Was that you, Kate? Okay, so I hope you have a peaceful rest of your day. I'm going to go get some supper on the go and maybe put on some baseball for a little bit, listen to some music. But, thank you for being here, and we will see you next week. We have Jason joining us. He was supposed to join us last week, but there was stuff going on and we weren't able to connect. So next week, Jason will be joining us to talk about reading with Letno. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.